Hey guys, as always, welcome to Applebee's. What do you think about defunding the po po? Yep, let's talk about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to tell you what I think, but I also want to get you up to date on what's going on right now, the conversations that are going on. And I always say this, that I want to have a conversation with y'all, but I do mean that. I think it's time to have a conversation and see where everybody is, so buckle up. Today's episode is brought to you by 80% Arms. You purchase from them, they deliver straight to your door, and you take it from there. AR 80% lowers and 80% Glocks, and you can get the Easy Jig 3, which lines everything up perfectly. 80% Arms says it is ridiculously easy, huge selection, and they have resources to help you out. Find out more over at 80% Arms. New channel sponsor, and for that, I'm thankful. For each of y'all, I'm also thankful. Y'all have been crushing those thumbs up, so thank you for that. It's always a help. A lot of fun over this weekend talking to y'all and having conversations, so thanks. Now, somebody may say, why are we having this conversation on here? Well, what we believe and the police force are very much tied in together for several reasons. We use tools, they use tools, so a lot of folks do lump us all together. But if Sniffin' Joe has his way and we end up doing mandatory buybacks, confiscations, where do we get those things confiscated at? Well, we go down to the local force, and that's where we turn those in. It's part of it. Now, also, we have these tools that we use. Here's mine for the day, the Shadow 2. People say that we shouldn't own these. Just call 911 if you really need help. You don't need to take this into your own hands. Call the force. But the same folks say that we should defund those folks. Yeah, we need to have a conversation about that. So it's a big deal. That's why I'm talking about it. It's very popular right now to talk about it, but two things right up front. I want to say this. There's a lot of different levels to, when you say the force, the police, the po po, county, city, state, even national forces like the FBI, the Secret Service, that sort of stuff. But then also I want to say that they're not one group. There's good people, bad people. It's just like when you put any group together, you're going to have good ones and bad ones. There's a lot of good and bad. I've got a lot of friends that serve, and a lot of YouTubers serve or have served, and they're good guys. I stand right shoulder to shoulder with them. There's several that I will absolutely put my name next to. Great guys. There's also some that we have here locally that I wouldn't walk across the street to shake their hand because they are complete and utter dirtbags. Not all of them, but a few. So I just want to say this, they're not all lumped together. But for this conversation, it's hard to have that conversation and not kind of put them all in one group. Some things that I like. There are some things about the force that I do really like. We need someone to call. There are times where we need to pick up the phone, make that call. I need help, come down here. There's also situations that need to be investigated. This is awful what I'm about to say. I had a student a while back who needed a rape kit. She needed one, and she went downtown. They did it. They ran over to the hospital. The police went with her, and the investigation started. And for that, I'm thankful that she had those folks to turn to, men and women. There was a whole team of them that worked with her. It was a big deal. I'm glad we had them. But also, it doesn't matter whether it's Old West time with the sheriff or whether it's modern times. We need muscle on the scene sometimes, and there are times where there's things that go bump in the night, and we need people that are willing to bump back. And that's a big deal. Every civilized village, town, city, or even modern society, we do need muscle. I like all that. Now, there's things that I don't like. I'm not a big fan of privatized prison systems. I think we have for-profit prisons that have they've got no motivation to get those kids out of that hamster wheel. They go in at 18 to 23, 25, 28, and they're in there for years and years on a hamster wheel. And I think we need to stop and talk about that. Why do we have for-profit prisons? That's a big deal. I'm also not a fan of locking folks up for non-violent offenses. I think that's a big deal as well and worth having a conversation on. I'm not a big fan of that. There are folks, clearly, to be very clear, that need to be locked away, throw away the key, put them under the jail, as my mama would say. Just put them under the jail. And I think that's important as well, to stop and go, hey, I'm not some guy that's like, hey, get everybody out. No, not at all. But I'm also not a fan of the militarization of some forces. If you're down on the border and you're fighting MS-13 on a daily basis, we can talk about militarizing those folks. But if there's a force in some middle America that's going down to exercise a warrant at 6 a.m. on some random kid, they don't need to roll up in an APC Insert Duncan Lemp references. So not good. So there's some things I get, but also some things that I don't get. It's very popular right now to talk about defunding the police. LA just this month, earlier this month, they voted a large chunk of cash away from the force and diverted it. Vox did an article on that, VOX. They did an article just recently talking about how slick it was, how the folks in LA repackaged it from defund the police to reimagine LA. And it was a marketing ploy, and it went through. We'll see what happens, but yeah, we'll see. Also, everybody knows what's going on in Portland and Seattle right now. What a complete mess. We're watching that one as well. And they're talking about, in the middle of their small businesses getting rioted and looted, they're in the middle of talking about defunding the police. LOL to that. Also in Minneapolis, they did the defunding thing earlier this summer, and then the words were they were surprised at the outcome to that. Funny how that works. Now, I get it that it's frustrating. Often when we talk about cops, we think of ourselves. We always do. For me, I know that there's some speed traps that I go through on a regular basis. And some of them are legit and other ones are just complete and utter money-making, cash-grabbing, abuse of power machines. Short version, we had a 2-lane road that was 50 miles an hour. They expanded it to 4, then dropped it to 35 miles an hour. Still long miles of straight, 35, 4-lane with a suicide lane in the middle. And the Tennessee state troopers sat out there for over 2 years and wrote checks all day long. They would back all the way in and hide, and they sat and made money. Now, you can't convince me. Yes, I know we need safe roads. I get that. But you can't convince me that was anything but a money-making scheme and an abuse of power. Not a fan of that. So, on a local level, I want to say, yeah, it'd be nice to have less speed traps. It'd be really nice to have less stoplight flashers going off and them soaking up cash from the populace. But on the other hand, I also know that there's some things that, like I said a minute ago, things that go bump in the night. I called a friend of mine in Colorado. He's a lifelong cop. And I asked him, I talked to him a little bit about this. And he said, Johnny, let me tell you what I'm investigating right now. And he told me about it. I'll never repeat what he told me. I can't even put the words out of my mouth. And I hear that and I'm like, I am so glad that there are people, men and women, that are willing to suit up and go down and find those people that did what they did. And I'm thankful for that. So on one hand, I get it. It's frustrating to have speed traps. On the other, yeah, we need people that are willing to investigate the nastiness and the filth of this world. I had a viewer one time that says, I handle everything myself. Yeah, that's great. What if they go in and they find a body that's been there for 4 days, and yeah, what are you going to handle that yourself? You're going to start the blood analysis and the DNA stuff? Yeah, good job, champ. So I get it. There is a duality in this pull from both directions. I get it. So I know it's a challenging thing. Now, there's a lot of nonsense going on right now. Civil asset forfeiture, that is a complete and utter silliness. If you're not familiar with that, Google it. It's a over $12 billion a year business. Civil asset forfeiture. It's just complete nonsense. I'm not a fan of the rolling gun control. Right now, bump stocks are illegal, but there's nowhere to go really turn them in. Like there's nobody that's policing. They're not knocking on doors. But maybe you have a domestic call. Johnny Popo comes by, comes into your house and looks over in the corner. Then you have rolling gun control, rolling all sorts of stuff, and they are policing us. And again, back to the idea of buybacks and forced confiscation. So I'm not a fan on that. I'm also not a big fan on the war on drugs. I'm not into drugs. I've never smoked pot, never will. And I think folks that do need to reevaluate their entire lives. Looking at half of y'all. And I'm 90% kidding. But I do think the war on drugs is a money-making scheme. People have made gazillions off of that in the name of the law. So I don't like that at all. So my point is this. There's a lot of things I get. But on the other hand, there's a lot of things that we need, folks. We need muscle at times. We need investigation at times. And we do need to have somebody that we can call whenever we need something. So I see both of those cases. I want to hear what you have to say. What do you think about that? That's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of torn in the middle. On one hand, I see a need. But on the other hand, I say LOL to Portland and Seattle. I mean, LOL, a complete defunding. Yeah, that's a bunch of nonsense. And it's okay. I'm willing to be able to say, yeah, maybe we've militarized too much. There's too many forces that have used national grants to be able to kit up and have APCs and things that you don't need in Main Street USA. But on the other hand, I'm very thankful there's people that are willing to put their lives at risk to sometimes protect all of us. So where are you at? I'm in the middle. I have some torn feelings on all of it, and I think that's okay. I think I'm old enough to be able to say I'm left with a question mark to anyone that is against us or our ability to own whatever we own, or anyone that wants to confiscate this from me, regardless of who you work for, your 9 to 5, regardless of whether you wear a badge or a uniform. I don't care if you're against this or me owning what I want or having my God-given rights. Yep. From a Gomer pile of hot brass from my cold, dead hands. Bye.